Welcome all. This is my human design gate for the next 5 days. And it's my channel Plutonic Planes. For those of you who are new, it's Meten. And this week I'm gonna do gate 6. And this is coming off of gate 47, which was conjunct the South Node, very karmic. And the 47 being a mental channel up here. And as you can see, it's still activated by the South Node. Prior to that, we had gate 64 active, which is confusion before clarity. So very mental Virgo time period we've been in. And being the anniversary of September 11th, the day before that anniversary date, there being the recent shooting that we all are very aware of and wary of. So very horrific situation, very sad and very disturbing. And it's happened right in between as I like to call it, the shadowlands of the eclipses. So this is happening right in between the two eclipses of September 7th and September 21st. And for those who listened to my dream wave of the month for September, I noted that it's a very treacherous time period. Anytime there's a shadowland period between two eclipses, and in the sense of eclipses also being symbolic of leaders, ruling leaders, humans that openly are political or some kind of leadership role. And so without a doubt, leader of the people was taken out. And we still have another eclipse coming up this Sunday, right on the eve of the transition from the sun transit of gate 6 to gate 46. And that's going to be Sunday. And the energy leading up, well, I should mention one more thing. We just recently had Saturday and Sunday, we had the Mercury Cazimi, which allowed for, on multiple layers and levels, almost an X-ray vision or psychic kind of sensibility into perceiving what's happening. And there's so many layers to it. Ultimately, as Shakespeare said, it's just a big show on the stage. It's not just a show, of course. The means by which we process our genetic evolution through the body, our emotional streams through the body, without identifying with them, but allowing our emotional states to be expressed. And so it was a very potent period, these last couple of days of clarity and assessment and awareness and perception. And so now, within a couple of days, Mars will move into Scorpio. It will oppose Pluto and we'll be back into it, back into the darkness. More tension will start to build, which will eclipse on the 21st and on the 22nd with fall equinox. And these days are going to show us the impact of this recent assassination. Because as quick as something like this occurs, as quick will be some kind of response to it. And we know the generative tendency, impulse, impact, or programming of such presentations on the stage of this world. This was foreshadowed and highlighted in every film that was created for the last 10 years. Every film gets run with these symbols and markers and numbers and images, and foremost is the major magazines like Times and The Economist, which carry symbolic images on their covers, not to mention card games and just everything pretty much. Everything seems to be numbered in this realm to express and foreshadow what is occurring. And it seems without doubt that we are right now in an interim, almost a liminal period. And you could feel like the electricity in the air as the pressure is going to need to be released again. And I would say by this weekend, it could be another incident of great magnitude and impact. And it could occur any time between the 20th and the 24th, as that is the highest impact period of this polarity oppositional force, represented symbolically by the opposition of the Aries vortex and this very Virgo, late Virgo, almost aneretic degree, almost Libra, 0 degrees, tension, which is in line with the Pluto opposite Mars. And as with oppositions, usually we humans take on the role of one side or the other, and we embody that energy. And that energy can even be put onto us by some sort of projective identification. And we may take on the role of the Pluto destroyer or the Mars aggressor. But these tensions are building and they will play out. And so the opportunity here prior to gate 46 and gate 25, where all the action will be, is this movement that we're experiencing now into gate 6. Because gate 6, as you can see here on this body graph, for the 16th through the 21st, these are the activations. As you can see, there's no center fully activated. And the key activation being the polarity, being the 80%, 70, 80% of the neutrinos through the sun into gate 6. And gate 6 is located down over here in one of the anxiety gates of the solar plexus. And as you can see, there's 3 full gates activated on the solar plexus. The 36 is a type of anxiety, of crisis. The 22 is a fear of disgrace, or grace through challenging experiences. And the 6 is the gate of conflict. Now, the gate of 6 is a gate of friction. It's an energy very closely related to the wave, the emotional wave of the solar plexus, which rises in hope and falls in the pain of hopelessness. Now, some people have this emotional wave moving in their biofield all the time. It's either moving up or down, but it's always moving, waiting to arrive at some sort of clarity, some sort of feeling clear. Now, this particular channel, or rather gate, sorry, it's not a complete channel, nor is it being activated at this time. But as a gate, it's related to 59, the gate of intimacy. So this is about how, in order to know another person, there are barriers that have to be broken down. There are layers that have to be broken down in order to get to know another person. And if those barriers can be broken down, then there can be connection. If those barriers cannot be broken down, then no friendship or connection really occurs. Now, the way Ra describes it in his I Ching is the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction. So there are many different examples of paradox and contradiction here in growth and our genetic tendencies towards growth. One of the major ones is that as the whole channel of the 59.6 relates to sexual reproduction, is the tension that it also relates to our ability to achieve peace and diplomacy with each other and to transcend and transform conflict into connection, into a bridge. And this channel is, this gate even, is responsible for the high voltage of extreme emotional states of being that humans are endemic to, and also the fear of these emotional states. And though emotions are not don't always necessarily express the truth of the moment, sometimes they just can express the anxiety of the moment, as all the gates on the solar plexus center signify different types of anxious states of being. Whereas on the opposite side over here, the splenic center gates that are connected to it represent states of fear. No, ultimately, there's something about the way we're genetically set up that somehow our sexuality relates to our need for conflict, and that there's an addiction to emotional states that many of us carry in our genetic coding. And so there can be addiction to expressing these emotional states, even to the point of identifying with these emotional states as being representations of who we are. And there's been a lot of shame socially in the last 15 years, ever since Neptune went into Pisces, about righteous adaptions of certain emotional states, almost to the extreme of justifying extreme emotional states as correct and correct to identify with. But really, a developmental evolutionary take on this situation is, of course, to know that there's no need for us to identify with our emotional states. We can have emotional states and they can play through us, but that's not who we are. I remember years ago, there was there was an aversion to any identification with anger. No one wanted to be identified as an angry person because of expressing anger. And yet, anger is one of the healthiest emotions represented by Mars because it establishes boundaries. And we live in a world that overrides boundaries at every turn. The sounds and the images and the symbols that dress our reality are constant and are infringements and betrayals of our own ability to be. Everywhere you go, we're bombarded with images and music that entrains us into anxious states, and colors and just layers and layers of artificial overstimulation. But when we go into nature, where is all that? Nature calms us, nature grounds us. Nature actually wants us, or we feel safe to come back into our bodies and not float so far out of our body when we're in nature. And so this particular gate 6 is asking us to look at how we relate to our emotional states and how we connect or create boundaries with others. And although on a mundane level, gate 6 and 59 are about how we mate with each other as human beings and how we reproduce on a base level, it also represents, as I already mentioned, the higher developments of that bridging and communication. So it does represent the importance of maintaining boundaries and bonds, and the need also to protect oneself, but not in a sense of not out of desperation, because the need to defend oneself is a situation that exists within before it can exist without. We don't experience anything outwardly that has not already been experienced inwardly, either in states of being or even in our dreams. And so we're looking at ways to adjust our behavior so that we can create harmonic interchange with others. And that goes with not over identifying with our ideas, our emotions, our expressions, our perspectives, because we don't need to try and change anyone. If there's anyone to change, there's an agenda, and that includes oneself. There's no need to change anything about oneself. The only need is to recognize oneself. And usually, when we're caught up in lower frequencies, we don't recognize oneself. We're recognizing a distracted beingness, a beingness that is not at center with oneself. And I mean this in the sense of if we are to face conflict in these next 5 to 6 months, if indeed these agendas start to play out, these programmed, foreshadowed agendas of war, civil war, regardless of where we are, it looks like with the geodetic astrology map that it will all begin in the England area, the area of Great Britain, with Saturn and Neptune there on the midheaven. That as we've begun to see with England and France, uprisings, with Pluto going out of bounds southward, uprising rebellions type energy is coming up in the next couple months. And as it plays out, it's important to remember that when intense anger is projected at you, at your energetic field, the important thing is not to amplify it. You can respond with anger in response, but not in a way that fuels the fire or adds to it, but just responds with boundary. And sometimes it's best not to respond at all. It reminds me of situations where people have been confronted, attempted to be intimidated or bullied, and the response was just not even to pay any attention or mind to him, whoever it was that was doing the bullying, because that's energy that just wants to be fed. And to ignore it is, well, not to feed it, right? And so the main theme that I'm going over here for this week, that we're all going through this week in preparation for the intensity of the eclipse, the fall equinox, the Mars-Pluto opposition. I think there's also a yod, which is the finger of God, geometric configuration in the astrological chart for the weekend. All this intense geometry is creating what's seeming to be the need for a defense to keep one's peace. But the ultimate defense is not to have anything to defend. All we have to defend, anyways, is our beingness. And what defense is there for that? We're in a state of beingness. If we're in a state of beingness, then there's no fear. There's just what's correct in the moment. But at the same time, we're all where we're at in our process, in our genetic evolutionary process through our body. So if one feels the need to defend in certain ways, then one must do as they feel. This is a very trying time, and a lot is being processed through the open centers. Just as you could see in this chart, there's no defined centers here. All the planets are in gates, and there's no defined centers being created. This creates more volatile period of time, or the opportunity for more channels and more energy that attempts to move to manifest into the throat center is possible. Because we all define these gates, the other side of these gates. If you have the 35, the 12, the 57, the 46, these are going to activate. And so the major activations here will be around, as I pointed out, the 59-6. So we'll be practicing. We'll have plenty time to practice learning not to identify with our emotional states, but just to express them and let them pass. We have so much time to practice this 2551, this mystical gate of the leap of beingness, as the Aries vortex is still located here until next spring. And then with gate 46 activating, Venus should still be there in gate 29, not yet in Virgo. Oh, that's already in Virgo, actually. And so it'll be moving after that to another Virgo gate. But with 46, we'll have activation of being in the right place at the right time, which is always the body. There's only one right place to be, and that's in the flesh, in your vehicle, in your beingness, not somewhere else. And often we're found somewhere else. No matter what we're doing, sometimes we're really not there, are we? The nature of man is to be in and out of this vehicle, and we move in and out of it all the time. But the real work is to be in the body. And I'm going to leave it at that. I will do a video tomorrow, the day after, for September 21st for the eclipse and the fall equinox. Little guide for those 4 days starting on the weekend. And I will talk about the importance of not being out in the open during eclipse period of time, especially if you're in that part of the world where the eclipse is occurring. And I will get into the fall equinox and its impact this year as the energy moves onward into October, November, and December for more acting on the world stage. And at this very difficult time, I encourage you all to do the best to keep your peace. And for some reason, I wanted to bring in this short story by Stephen Crane called The Blue Hotel. Now, this hotel was one of the big influences on the film The Shining, um, by the famous director who we know passed after Eyes Wide Shut. And it's funny because a lot of us who've seen all the documentaries made on The Shining know that he wasn't really inspired by that much by the book by Stephen King. But if one looks deeper into it, one sees that he was inspired by a story called The Blue Hotel. Now, what's funny about the Blue, not funny, but what's interesting about the story of the Blue Hotel is it's a story about, it's a strange story. It's a gambling story. One of my favorite types of story about a card game. And in that card game, there's three people playing, and one person is cheating. And one person knows that person is cheating. And then the third person calls it out. The third person's unfamiliar, new to the space and area, a stranger. And the stranger calls it out. And it creates this great tension that actually creates these series of events, domino effect events that lead to a death and guilt of one of the characters in allowing that betting to occur when he knew someone was being cheated, even though he wasn't the one cheating. And I'll leave you guys with that little political analogy to see if it fits somewhere in our collective story. And so, best to you guys during these very trying times between eclipses, these very dark Shadowland times. And see you soon. Thanks for watching, and appreciate you all so much for listening and enjoying my channel. And look for the eclipse video I'll put out soon in the next couple days. Thanks so much.